We tend to think of history as this story that's already been written, a collection of facts that are just set in stone. But what if the past you know is incomplete? Or even worse, what if parts of it were deliberately invented?
I mean, do you really know it? Today we're going to go on a journey to challenge what's real, what might be real, and what could be dangerously false.
Because history isn't just some highlight reel of kings and battles. It's this incredibly complex tapestry, and we're about to pull on some of the threads that are usually kept hidden from view.
So, let's start with the facts. Real, verifiable history that you probably won't find in your standard textbook.
We often picture medieval life as a world run completely by men. But the evidence, it tells a totally different story. In a lot of cities, women were brewers, bakers, and merchants. They were running businesses and holding real economic power inside trade guilds. This wasn't just a footnote, it was a central part of the economy that kind of got diminished over time.
See, this is what real historical investigation looks like. Finding new evidence that challenges our old assumptions. Now, hold on to that idea of evidence, because we're about to go from rediscovering history to erasing it entirely. All right, we've talked about adding to the historical record. Now, let's explore a theory that tries to subtract a huge chunk of it.
Just think about that for a second. Not a misinterpreted event, but entire centuries. Just gone. It sounds completely impossible, but it's a fringe theory with a surprisingly dedicated following.
The core claim here is that nearly 300 years of the early Middle Ages, we're talking Charlemagne, the Carolingian Renaissance, all of it, were completely invented. That they just, poof, never happened.
So the people who believe this theory point to what they see as a major gap in the timeline. They look at the archaeological records, the written records from this period, and they argue that there's this suspicious lack of progress, claiming this whole chunk of time feels like it was artificially inserted.
And according to the theory, this wasn't an accident. Nope, it was a deliberate conspiracy cooked up by medieval emperors and the church. And the motive? To manipulate the calendar, to place themselves at the symbolic dawn of the year 1000, and to basically cement their control over the entire narrative of history itself.
Okay, now we're entering a real gray zone, where we have these very real artifacts that have inspired some truly wild interpretations.
Take a look at the Voynich manuscript. This isn't a theory, it's a real physical thing. A beautifully illustrated medieval book written in a script that, to this day, nobody has been able to decipher. And believe me, everyone has tried to crack it, from medieval alchemists to the world's best military codebreakers, and even modern AI. All of them have failed. So, is it an elaborate hoax? A lost language? The mystery is so powerful precisely because the evidence, the book itself, is real, it's tangible, but what it means is completely out of our reach.
So from an unreadable book, let's turn to structures that are so massive, so precise, that they spark huge debates about who could have possibly built them.
And this is where we see two completely competing stories for the same evidence. On one hand, archaeology points to the incredible skill and ingenuity of ancient peoples, showing exactly how these amazing feats were achieved. On the other hand, you have theories like ancient astronauts, which got really popular in the media, suggesting that humans must have had some kind of extraterrestrial help. One is rooted in material evidence, the other is really just speculation about what humans were capable of.
This is where our journey takes a bit of a darker turn. Because sometimes these alternative stories about the past aren't just harmless fun.
So what's the real-world cost here? What happens when these stories about the past get hijacked to serve a modern and often ugly agenda?
Well, this is known as pseudo-archaeology. It's the practice of deliberately warping myths to support modern ideologies, like the racist theory that a lost white race was secretly responsible for all the wonders of ancient civilizations around the globe. The myth of Atlantis is the perfect and saddest example. It started as just a philosophical tale by Plato. Then it became this romantic fantasy of a lost utopia. But in the early 20th century, it was twisted by extremist groups and co-opted as the mythical homeland of a so-called Aryan race.
And this is the ultimate danger. A philosophical story becomes a weapon used to rob real cultures of their heritage and promote a hateful narrative of racial superiority. This isn't just bad history, it becomes a foundation for very real-world harm.
So, after this journey through hidden facts, phantom time, and really dangerous myths, how do we make sense of it all? What's the takeaway? So, here's what you should keep in your critical toolkit. First, remember that real history is always evolving as we find new evidence.
Second, understand that interpretation is absolutely everything. It's what separates verifiable history from a compelling myth. And finally, and this is the most critical part, always be aware of the motive, because myths and pseudo-history can be weaponized with truly dangerous consequences.
So the main takeaway is this. Whenever you hear a claim about the past, you've got to ask 3 questions. What's the evidence? Who is telling this story? And most importantly, why are they telling it?
You see, history isn't just something you learn, it's something you analyze. The stories we choose to tell about our past really do define who we are today. So the final question is, what will you question next?